And what is hierarchical?
It's where like something is like some, I don't know, culture or object is like say popular or kind of used in one class, and they kind of like it kind of trickles down to other classes by like it being say hip or cool or
Cool.
stylish.
If we're going to use TikTok and Instagram as our idea of hierarchical diffusion, who are the people at the top in those media? What? Influencers. Good. And so they're influencers, and it goes. We say that hierarchical diffusion can also start at the bottom and work its way up. What would be an example of opposite hierarchical diffusion? Greta?
Like things like jeans, for example, they used to be like very poor people used to wear them, and then it became more like a.
Great. So it gets sort of like adopted by a different. Starts kind of at the bottom in the poor or something else. Okay, give me another type of diffusion. Number 2. Who's number 2? Hayden, give me another.
The one where you have like a node or like a point,
Okay.
and it like spreads like this. Get it so like it just like spreads around like it's not like
Spread. That's all diffusion. It spreads.
Okay.
So in what way does it spread? You want to take it fast? Take it fast. All right. 12. Who's 12?
Expansion diffusion. Like when like something diffuses like through the expansion.
Okay, that's what we're talking about on all 3 of these. So we've got relocation, which is where I just take it with me. Expansion is where it starts to expand beyond my group. And we said hierarchical diffusion is an example of expansion diffusion. There are 2 more.
Stimulus diffusion.
Stimulus. What's an example of stimulus diffusion? What is it?
Diffuses by like as it goes to like a different area, it gets changed.
Good. Gets changed. So like we said, smartphones. It was that phone, and then it gets adapted into a different sort of technology. It stimulates a different sort of growth. Good. And then there's one more type of expansion diffusion. Number 15. Who's that?
Me.
Greta. What's the last one?
Contagious.
And what is contagious diffusion?
From person to person, like COVID.
It goes fast, right? Good. It expands rapidly. All right. So we're going to be looking at bluegrass today. And bluegrass is really coming from this area of the United States. So Kentucky and Tennessee. Mr. Yoder, where are you from? Right there.
Knoxville.
Knoxville. Mr. Priestley, where are you from?
I'm right in here.
Good.
Up in these mountains right
Kind of by
here.
the coffee. And I'm not from anywhere there. So I think that's going to tell you one way in which this diffusion takes place. So you guys are native to that area.
That's right.
We couldn't help it. So we're going to look at this. How many of you have heard of bluegrass? Okay. How many of you have heard of at least country music? Okay. Cool. So country music and bluegrass are going to be sort of related to each other. And there's a great debate until kind of which one, how they start and how the beginnings are.
Yep.
But we're going to see that early on, immigrants from the UK, Ireland, that area, and I would argue probably some German influences, and certainly what other influence? African American in this case, were coming to the States and bringing with them these kind of traditional dance tunes. Now I said traditional, which tells us that it's coming from traditional culture. But what type of diffusion is this initial diffusion? Tristan?
Like relocation.
Great, it's relocation. Now once it gets there into Tennessee and Kentucky, into that area, we're going to see it change just a little bit. And it'll probably turn into a different type of diffusion as it incorporates other cultures through stimuli, right? As these different groups start to mix. This is the history of rock and roll. So we're going way back here, and we're going to look at country. Why do you think it's called country at the beginning? It's still called that today, but it doesn't sound like it's from the country. Why is it called country back in the day? Because it's from the countryside. Good.
Not from the city.
It's not from the city, right? It's from the country. And we're going to see that it kind of changes into these to being influenced by blues sometimes to, you're going to hear us play a little bit of kind of some rockabilly as we get in there. A little bit, not really so much folk rock, but we'll kind of hang out in this area right here. So the first one that we're going to be looking at is Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys, which is where they think they got the term bluegrass from. Mr. Yoder, what do you know about Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass
Bill
Boys?
Monroe, the Bluegrass Boys, they're from Kentucky. That's Bill Monroe right there. He's a mandolin player. And they were one of the first bands that really kind of solidified the format of bluegrass music. I think bluegrass music can be led by a number of different instruments, but almost always you're going to find a mandolin and a violin, that we call the fiddle where I'm from.
Bill.
An instrument that you find missing right there is a banjo.
Well, they do have a banjo
There's a
player
banjo-
in it.
There's a banjo
He's
player
got it back there.
He's kind of hiding it because he's ashamed that he plays a banjo.
So the banjo is a good example of it being a stimuli into bluegrass because it's not originally a European instrument. It's from Africa. So this would be coming from the slave plantations.
Yeah. The original banjo didn't have a steel resonator.
No.
So if you've ever seen a banjo, it's like this kind of like round, almost shaped like a drum. That's because originally the banjo was both a string instrument and a percussion instrument.
Yep, they would play both.
And the original banjo was not a steel resonator, but it was a gourd, like a pumpkin.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, kind of, but not really a pumpkin.
Yeah, and they would tune it differently too. Like it's still to this day not tuned like E, A, D, G, B.
No, it's tuned with one string that's always a droning string. So there's one string that you never play if you fret. It just stays open the whole time.
Just like
Yeah,
it'd be like
drones.
good.
Yeah, that doesn't go like that, but
Something like that.
that's an open
Yeah.
G string.
It's an open G, not an open E, but that's the idea. Yeah, all right, so these guys started. So we're gonna play one. Now, traditional culture, what's gonna be the hallmark of traditional culture when it comes to like what the songs are about versus popular culture? We said that popular culture has what kind of themes? I mean, just think of any like One Direction, Backstreet Boys, Britney Spears, Lady Gaga. What are they all about? There's like three themes. Come on, you guys. Really? You don't know? Audrey knows. Sang-woo knows. Love? Right?
Yeah.
Baby,
Love.
baby, baby, ooh. They're all about like whatever. Or like, it's Friday, we're gonna have fun, going to the party. Like that's like it, right? It's like that's pretty much it. So I don't think you're gonna hear a lot of that in this. So this is called In the Pines. If you're a Nirvana fan, you may have heard elements of this off their live Unplugged album. Okay, let's see if I can remember.
We leave our masks on for singing.
Do we leave our masks on for singing?
Oh, you're fine.
Director says he doesn't know, so we can take these off. We probably, it's performance.
It's your call. How are you going?
Miss Miracle saying no. Okay.
No, dang it, alright. So you get something even extra special.
Yeah, you get a little more muffled than.
Yeah, this is like a thing on it. It's like your trombone. Alright,
Start singing.
this part. Cool. So, what were the themes that were coming out in the lyrics there? Anything about love and stuff or other stuff? Tristan?
It's more kind of like the environment that they lived in.
Great, that's traditional culture, right? So Bill Monroe, we don't know if he actually wrote this or if this is kind of coming at him from other stuff. Probably just,
I think this is like, he wrote an arrangement and a version of this, but there's even like different names to this song. So there's like, Where Did You Sleep Last Night? Or, what the other one's called, like Little Girl, Little Girl.
Little Girl.
Yeah, and it's all the same song in terms of the cadence and
Yeah.
the chords, but it's really, it's a similar focus, but sometimes it's a little bit more murder ballady.
Murder ballad, which is a real genre, by the way. And you can kind of see it here too. Like this is kind of predating this, so you can see where it kind of morphs into blues, which is going to have much more of like a rock and roll feel when we get up into this. And then this idea of like grunge is really coming kind of from, look at all this kind of folk rock. So you can see the influences coming down as it's changing. All right, we'll do another one. This is moving ahead in time. So Bill Monroe, kind of the 1920s and 30s, really. And then as we move into the 50s, Johnny Cash. How many of you heard of Johnny Cash? Yeah, okay, he's a pretty popular guy. I'm gonna get rid of my string that broke, and I'm just gonna play without.
Oh, wait, bro.
Okay, so I'll just be without my E string, and that's okay. So again, this is another one where the themes are going to be much more traditional. He's probably taking it again from some other things, but you'll hear a little bit more of this kind of folksiness as it kind of changes. It's not quite so sad. It's getting a little bit more into pop. All right.